Hey guys, well in this video I'm going to be giving you an update on our figure 8 race car. We gave it a new paint job and also had some issues after our last race, so we're going to be talking about that right after this. Hey guys, Alex here from All For Him Racing, and today giving you an update on our figure 8 race car. Since the last video, we went ahead and gave this thing a bit of a paint job. Now unfortunately, just due to time constraints and those sorts of things, when I was actually giving it a paint job, I was unable to film a video on it. But here, let me just flash up some pictures from my phone that I took periodically over the course of that couple hours that I had in order to give this thing a paint job. So, you know, check that out. Let me know your guys' thoughts. We decided to go with a black and a lime green color scheme, and pretty happy with how it turned out. Now you guys will also notice that there is already mud on this. Well, that is because we painted this thing on last Saturday morning and then took it out to the Putnam County Fair to run in their figure 8. They did not have a mini and a full-size class. They only had a figure 8 car class, and so that's what we did. And I always wondered how this thing could do against the full-size cars, and it held its own overall pretty good until the track got really dry and it just couldn't make those corners as quick as the guys with the rear-wheel drive, and unfortunately she got pretty hot and had some issues. So let's talk about the issues that we had to face. So this thing got pretty hot, and it's been getting kind of hot the last couple times I've ran it. So I already knew a fluid flush was already in the works. The antifreeze and water just had a nice kind of burn smell to it, so obviously that was no good and needed to be changed out. So we flushed that here and we gave it some new fluids since the fact, but the race was going okay. Again, just running against full-size cars. They were a lot heavier than me, and when the track was muddy, I had a little bit of an advantage in the fact I could get around the corner pretty quick. Well, once the track decided to dry out, thanks to the hot sun, I lost the ability for this back end to really whip around. Having the rear-wheel drive and being able to just do a donut was definitely the better way to go. And so those guys kicked my butt at the very end. Unfortunately, I was holding a second place out of 6 cars for a while, but when this thing got hot, it did stall and did not want to fire back up. Which turns out it was actually a bit of saving grace, because with the kind of luck we have around here, the oil filter actually got a bit of a puncture. So I've actually gone ahead and already swapped that out. There's a new filter under here, and I can't seem to get the camera to cooperate, but there's a brand new filter kind of sticking down there. And we had a bit of a pin-sized hole, so when we were able to get this thing fired back up on the trailer, it was spewing oil all over the place. So definitely was glad that the car did shut off when it did, so we didn't have any internal damage inside. Really lucky there. So that was certainly one of the problems. So that was at the event. Also had the battery go dead, minor issue, not a big deal. But when we went to start this thing, had a very interesting situation. So it would start and then immediately die. And it would do that about 3 times in a row, and then it would finally start and stay running, but it would have this very interesting pulse. Now, I'll try to throw this video up on here real quick for you guys so you can check it out for yourselves. The pulse itself really spoke to me as it's a vacuum leak. That's something that would be a typical sign that you have a vacuum leak. You know, in a rough idle, just in general, not being able to have the power you need. So certainly part of it was the rough idle. So what I went ahead and I swapped out the idle air control sensor that is there. Actually, it's a valve, sorry, not a sensor. It's got a little servo motor in there, a little stepper motor, and that just regulates the air going into the throttle body, so that way it can hold a nice idle. So it seemed like an easy place to start after I had done an initial check for vacuum leaks. Couldn't find any vacuum leaks, nothing major. There was a couple little fittings that were a little loose, so I just kind of snugged those up. Again, was not a big enough deal that I was able to find anything wrong. So tried that, and then I was able to get it to idle at least consistent. So it wasn't doing the pulsing idle, it was just doing a rough idle. So at least I was moving in the right direction. However, it was still not right. Obviously that was no good, having a really rough idle. The other issue that I had was the throttle was incredibly touchy. So if I just gave it a little bit of gas, it would rev up the RPMs a lot faster than it should. And I also had one situation where I was trying to just see how well it could come down from RPM, because it climbed it super quick, and then I had it actually get stuck, like have a runaway motor, so to speak, as if the throttle was stuck, but I had the throttle body all the way closed. So I immediately shut the car off, because obviously that's no good. It's sitting there holding 4 grand RPM and just screaming. So I shut her down. And then at that point I knew there has to be a vacuum leak happening here. There just has to be. Nothing else really makes sense. So what I did was what you do when you have a vacuum leak. There's a few different options that you have for finding it. The easiest one is just listening for a hissing sound, and you can kind of trace that by ear and look for a line that's maybe pulled apart. In this case, I didn't really have a hissing sound at all, so that option was out. Now a lot of the professionals will use a smoke machine of sorts that basically will induce a smoke into the vacuum system, so that way anywhere there's a leak, the smoke will work its way out. Well, those machines cost, you know, a better part of $1,000, and there's some other options you can use, you know, just kind of generate your own smoke. Did not go that route. So the other backyard mechanic trick is you take carb and choke cleaner and you spray that around the joints. So you take the can, you spray it up around the intake here, around the vacuum lines themselves, anywhere where there's a vacuum port capped off, around the master cylinder, the back of the intake. Those are the kind of places you want to search. And when I had done that previous, you know, again, going back before I had changed this valve here, I had searched for vacuum, and I did that same trick, couldn't find anything. So the trick with the, actually I didn't even specify, so what the trick is when you spray at the motor with that carbon choke cleaner, you'll get a surge. It's like putting starter fluid, and that's another option. You can actually use starter fluid. I choose not to do that because I feel it's just a little extra combustible, so I don't like doing it, just don't feel comfortable. But you'll get a surge, like, you know, hitting it with a little bit of nitrous, a little bit of a boost, so to speak. And that is a sign that you have a vacuum leak. Well, sprayed all around these areas again, and once you know it, I sprayed up, tucked in behind this bolt. If I sprayed here, I didn't get any surge or nothing, but if I sprayed right down in here, kind of underneath, again, between like the throttle body area and on the underside of this plenum that's here. So just sprayed it up in there and it surged. So instantly I'm like, okay, haha, found it, had a vacuum leak. So pulled these bolts, lifted the intake up, and sure enough, the gasket that it was in here on the back side had a little bit of a kink in it. Wasn't quite lined up ever exactly right, almost like a little twist, ever so slight. So what I did, just to verify that that was in fact the issue, is I just, you know, cleaned up the surfaces, put the gasket back in there, making sure, you know, kind of working it with my hand to get it more aligned the way that it's supposed to be, and from there fired it up. Now it runs and idles really nice, and to be completely honest with you, this is the smoothest that it has ran since I've owned it, in my personal opinion. I feel like, you know, replacing that valve I'm sure is probably needed, because it had a little bit of a rough idle for the better part of the last the end of races last year, and then certainly into this season. So now it's idling really nice and smooth. It's got good power, good responsiveness from the throttle, and so that was it. Finally solved it after a lot of searching and trial and error to get down to the problem. When you're dealing with these computerized systems and having the scanners already been removed, so having those systems, it just is a lot more tricky to solve the problems, because if you have a sensor going bad, it's kind of just start changing things until you figure it out. But long story, there you go guys, that's what's happened on it. Got that squared away. I have a brand new set of gaskets that I'm going to be pulling this, pulling them off again and swapping out, so we're going to do that, and then we should be good to go. So we're going to also then be giving this thing a bit of a bath and clean it up with a new paint job. Again, just touching it all up, and then we'll be in good shape to race. So upcoming race, we're going to be hopefully running at the Jay County Derby. That's in Portland, Indiana. I know our friend Mitch from Demolition Missions will be out there filming it. So for us, we'll probably just have an in-car cam, and that'll be about it. But definitely look for this car on those videos, and then we have some more coming up, dates to be completely determined at this point. So there you go guys, there is an update on what's been happening on the Figure 8 race car. Definitely check us out on Instagram if you've not already started to follow us on there. We've posted pictures of this car being painted on there throughout the process, and we also posted pictures on our Facebook page, so look us up on Facebook if you haven't already too. Those of you that do follow us on Facebook or Instagram, you already have an insider information on what was going on with this car, so congratulations guys, and now you finally get the update through video. Also running some specials right now on our Etsy page, so be sure to check those out. Try to provide a link in the description below for that, for you guys to check out. We got all the decals and t-shirts. We adjusted some of our pricing after listening to some of your feedback, so make sure to check those things out for yourself, and anything you can do to support us is absolutely awesome. So there you go guys, there is an update on our Figure 8 race car. Hopefully this video was cool. If it was, give us a thumbs up, and consider subscribing if you've not already done so. As always, we hope you guys have a great day, and until the next video, we'll talk to you later guys.